terrible. And that's coming from a Brit. And finally, be afraid of the media. And of course, if you want to hear their side of the story, look at CNN or The Guardian. They'll tell you everything you don't need to know.
And I'm now going to proceed to sign the articles.
I'm reminded, of course, of Brexit here in the UK, where British people voted for something 3.5 years ago, and our politicians and our establishment and the elite decided that we got the wrong answer too. So they did everything they could to try and stop us. They virtually had an Acne cartoon about it because they threw pianos, grand pianos out the window. They exploded telephone boxes. They sent Gina Miller. They tried to change the law. Anything they could, they threw in our path to try and stop what we voted for. And of course, the same thing is happening right now, today, in America. This whole impeachment farce isn't real. Nobody's actually done anything wrong. There is nothing written nor proven that the president has done. This is just a way of the establishment of the Democrats having a little hissy-pissy fit because Americans were seen as getting the wrong answer when they voted for Donald. They've thrown Russia at it. They've tried to talk about his past sexual infidelities. They will throw anything they can at this thing. But ultimately, you know what? The parallel with Britain is still true. We went back to the polling booths on the 12th of December. We have got Boris back, and we are going to make Brexit happen because the voice of the people shouts louder than the nonsense of the other side. And this will be true in America too. When it comes to vote, great Americans, blue-collar America, Rust Belt America will get out, and they will shout once more for President Donald J. Trump. Do not lose heart. Keep the faith. The British people waited 3.5 years to get Brexit, and we're going to get it in a month's time. You have to just persevere through this time. Know that the Democrats know that they can only lose, and so now they're going to go out in a ball of fire, dress in black. All you want, Nancy Pelosi. All you are doing is walking your party to its own funeral, and I don't plan to attend. There's so much going on at the moment in the world, it feels like a bit of a mad place. So I thought I'd give you my top 5 rundown of what's actually happening. At number 5, the Covington Catholic schoolboys. It's now been decided that the Trump internet is to blame and that some sophisticated PR company has made it so that the boys now look like they're the good guys and the left-wing mainstream media now look stupid. I think you'll find you did that all by yourselves. And number 4, Zimbabwe. We're allowed to talk about Zimbabwe, where police are cracking down on protesters, firing rounds at them. We're allowed to talk about that. What you're not allowed to talk about is the gilets jaunes, the yellow vests in France, protesting about Macron. There's no coverage for that at all because, of course, he's a globalist and we're all supposed to be globalists now. Number 3, Brexit. Still hasn't happened, still doesn't look like it's going to happen. The MPs who represent people who voted for it to happen aren't going to make it happen. Essentially, democracy is being ruled out in the UK. We may as well tear up our social contract and take to the streets if we weren't being so terribly British. And at number 2, the government shut down in America. Big idea, build a wall, strong borders, keep the people who want to harm you out. Of course, if you're a Democrat, you need those people in because you want their votes. Nancy Pelosi, for God's sake, sort your dentures out, will you, woman? I do admire you for your tenacity, but your teeth are terrible, and that's coming from a Brit. And finally, Microsoft is going to implement software without you having to download it, which will tell you what you're allowed to read and whether you should be reading it. Be afraid of the media. And of course, if you want to hear their side of the story, look at CNN or The Guardian. They'll tell you everything you don't need to know.
Yeah, let me just say this. We're supposed to believe Adam Schiff today and everything he's saying. Remember, this is a guy who said we have more than circumstantial evidence that there was coordination between Trump and Russia to influence the election. That turned out to be false. Adam Schiff said that Nunes' memo was false. Michael Horowitz told us, no, it wasn't. It was exactly right. Adam Schiff said you can trust the FISA court. Michael Horowitz told us last month, no, you can't. They lied to the FISA court 17 times. Adam Schiff told us we look forward to hearing from the whistleblower. Adam Schiff said, we've had no contact with the whistleblower. And then just yesterday, the story where he misrepresents to all of you, to Chairman Nadler, and most importantly to the White House counsel, that Mr. Z is Mr. Zelensky, when in fact it was Olszewski. But today we're supposed to believe him. He just talked for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we're supposed to believe everything he said today. In spite of that history, where 7 important things he had exactly wrong. So yeah, when he talks about Sondland, he doesn't tell you that was all presumption. Mr. Sondland said that when Congressman Turner asked him under oath at the hearing. So that's the kind of game they're playing here. And again, I think the American people see through it all.
So was it wrong for Mr. Cipollone to say that there were no Republicans in any of the depositions? I mean, all you four took part in almost every single interview that happened as part of this investigation.
No White House counsel present. They subpoenaed every single witness. They kicked out all kinds of members. They wouldn't let the American people see. And then they say, Chairman Nadler says last night he uses the term cover-up after they did 17 depositions in the bunker in the basement of the Capitol.
For clarity,
when Adam comes to the floor and talks about a cover-up, are you kidding me? Members of Congress tried to get in, members of the Judiciary Committee, and they were kicked. You all know this. You all covered it.
As we saw yesterday, this is the weakest case for impeachment in the history of this country. We continue to see how flimsy this case is, which is why there was bipartisan opposition in the House. There was bipartisan no votes when it comes to impeachment. I anticipate that we will continue to hear lies and half-truths from Adam Schiff today. He also doesn't include important testimony that every single witness testified that he or she had no direct evidence of impeachable offenses, high crimes, misdemeanors, treason, or bribery. So Adam Schiff and his team can continue to speak for hours to the American public. Certainly in my district, they're tuning this out. They want us to get back on behalf of the American people and get back to work. And they want to work this out in the election. The American people have a right to decide at the ballot box.
Excuse me.
As your own advisors, what does that mean other than speaking of just kind of foundational questions?
Well, many of us were deeply involved, obviously, in the process in the House, having either sat in most of the depositions, which almost every individual here did sit in those, or participating in the House Intelligence Committee or the House Judiciary Committee. So having an understanding of the process fouls and how unfair Adam Schiff ran this process, that's important to point out the hypocrisy of his witness claims, for example, when Republicans were not able to call a single Republican witness, only witnesses that the Democrats wanted to call, how rushed this was in the House, and also reading every single word of the depositions, every single shred of witness testimony, all of us have read. So we're deeply familiar, and if we can be helpful to make sure that the counsel's office knows all that, that's what we're here for.
For clarity, weren't Morrison and Hale and Volker, they were all Republican witnesses, were they not?
They were called by Democrats. We did formal requests of additional witnesses that were Republican only, and not a single one of those witnesses was called. Those individuals had already been deposed and had already done the depositions.
Senate Republicans have said the House should have done the work, that they needed to subpoena these guys when they had the opportunity. Would you welcome the House beginning the subpoena process?
Well, listen, Adam Schiff had,
like John Bolton and others. It's not too late if they choose to.
Adam Schiff had his opportunity, and they chose to take back the subpoena. This was rushed. This was on an arbitrary deadline. They wanted to get this done before the holidays because they're on an arbitrary deadline. I'm not sorry that their case is so flimsy, but it's very clear that it is flimsy, and they didn't come here with a strong case.
Yeah, I think the Congresswoman Stefanik makes a key point. You call your witnesses, you subpoena your witnesses before you vote on the articles of impeachment. You know, now to come back and say all of a sudden our case is weak, which they're not saying that. I'm saying their case is weak. The American people are seeing that their case is weak. But to suggest now that we're going to have these additional witnesses, when they went to subpoena the witnesses,